With football season upon us now, there's a lot happening in the news, so be sure to subscribe to my other channel, JG9 News, where I give you up-to-the-minute updates on everything happening in the NFL in a completely relaxed, unscripted format, and I give my thoughts on everything taking place around the National Football League today. And now, on with our feature presentation.
Hey, Patrick, what am I now?
Bad at in-game management?
No, I'm Mike McCarthy.
What's the difference?
Oh, we are so back, people. Mike McCarthy is so back. September 8th, 2024. It's week 1 of a brand new NFL season, and we find ourselves in Cleveland for this interconference matchup on America's Game of the Week between the Cleveland Browns and the Dallas Cowboys, in what is a big game in more ways than one. For the main team in our story, the Cowboys, not only would it be good to start the season off with a win, especially in what is a make-or-break year, but you figure that the NFC East is going to be a two-horse race between you guys and the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not sure how many people expect someone not named Philadelphia or Dallas to win this thing. Well, Philly started their season off with a bang the other night in Brazil, winning that game over the Green Bay Packers in a battle that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. So the last thing you want to do if you're Dallas is give Philly a one-game cushion on the division lead already. I know it's early, but considering how tight that race in the division is probably going to be on paper, every game and every win counts. So you really don't have a lot of room for error to make avoidable mistakes. Which, yeah, we'll get to that. But before we do get to that, we post every single day about the weird and wacky history of the NFL, including stuff that happened during this current season. So if you like that sort of stuff, then be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. And so far, this game has gone amazingly for the Cowboys. Dallas finds itself up 20-3 with the ball at their own 40-yard line after getting a big defensive stop on a 3-and-out to have a chance at one final possession. If you can just get a first down on this play, you can give Brandon Aubrey a chance at trying a field goal from 60-plus yards, which he's got the leg to make. He hit from 60 last year, and he hit from 66 yards just a few weeks ago in the preseason against the Las Vegas Raiders. So you don't need much to be able to try it. First down, and Dak Prescott hits Jalen Tolbert for a gain of 12 to get the Cowboys down to Cleveland's 48-yard line. Perfectly done. That's how you draw it up. Now, you're lining up for a 66-yard field goal, a record-tying field goal. You can actually try this and deliver the knockout punch to the Browns before the half. The bad news for the Cowboys is that they're not ready for this field goal for whatever reason, as the offensive line is not even in its stance with 7 seconds on the play clock. Brandon Aubrey isn't set yet with 7 on the play clock, and he's still walking backwards. But you know what? That's okay. That's more than okay. You've got 2 timeouts left, and you didn't burn one on the last play since Tolbert went out of bounds. So you can call one here. So just burn one here, and don't take the delay of game, and get the snap off. You are going to take the timeout, right?
A few moments later.
You're kidding me. You're actually kidding me. Mike freaking McCarthy!
Delay game. Aubrey gets into it, whistles on this one. Look at this thing, though. It would have been good.
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something to look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something to look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're going to take a look at the mind of Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy. We've saved the best for last with the Week 1 episodes of Dumb Decisions. Good friend of the program. Feel as though I see him every week on this show. I'm not even going to do the upper right corner thing with McCarthy to tell you about his previous decisions, because I'd be here for 9 hours if I did that with how many times he's made an appearance on here for something stupid that he did in the middle of a game. I'll just leave a link in the description of the video to all of his previous installments of Dumb Decisions, because McCarthy making a head-scratching bad decision in the middle of a game is about as much of a guarantee at this point as the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. You know what's going to happen, and man, did it happen here. Even though the Cowboys won the game, it doesn't change the fact that what McCarthy did here, or rather, did not do by refusing to call timeout, was really stupid. So with that being said, let's take a look at why not calling a timeout and instead taking a delay of game penalty is a really bad idea. Obviously, you never want to lose yards. I feel like I'm Tom Brady in the broadcast booth saying that, although I'm not making $375 million for those insights. But if the play clock runs down to 0 and you lose 5 yards, that's not good. That's never good. However, if it comes down to having to burn a timeout or take the 5-yard penalty, there are times where it is way better to take the 5 yards because the timeout will be more valuable for you down the road. As an example, let's say it's 3rd and 21, and you're trailing by 10 points in the third quarter on your own 25-yard line. You could take the timeout as the play clock is expiring and not take a delay of game. But why? There's no difference in how you call 3rd and 21 versus 3rd and 26, and the potential 40 seconds you'd be saving by keeping the timeout are way more valuable than the 5 yards you're losing on a play that was already going to be tough. Or you're trailing by 5 points in the fourth quarter and you're kicking a 29-yard field goal, but the play clock is winding down. Yeah, a delay of game stinks, and moving back 5 yards isn't good. But at this level, is there too much of a difference between 29 yards and 34 yards for a field goal? At least, if the alternative is to lose a timeout and potentially miss out on 40 seconds that you might need down the road? Not really. Or let's say it's 4th and 4 at midfield and you're trying to get the opposition with a hard count, and they don't bite. You take the delay of game penalty and you don't waste a timeout if you're just going to punt it back to them. What's in between 4th and 4 and 4th and 9 if you're going to punt it? There's no difference. Keep the timeout. You get the idea. And you can probably think of a ton of other scenarios where this applies, and where it is more beneficial to save the timeout and just eat the 5-yard penalty. However, do any of those apply here? Seriously, does a single one of these scenarios apply? What are you saving the timeouts for? You want to exchange them for one of the prizes on the rack at Dave & Buster's, as though they're game credits you get when you play that game where you drop the ball into the hole? You want to use them at grocery stores if they're coupons? There's 4 seconds left in the first half. There was not a single play that you can call on this spot that will take less than 4 seconds. So this is going to be the final play of the half. The 2 timeouts are completely and utterly meaningless to have. But even if, hypothetically, there was a play you could call that would take 3 seconds, there has never, not once, in the history of this sport, been a time where 2 plays from scrimmage have been called in a 4-second stretch over the middle of the field where you would need to burn both of your timeouts and where it would be beneficial to have them. In other words, you have the timeouts there and you have no plays that you're saving them for. You don't need them for anything else going forward. This is the last play, no questions asked. Why not take the timeout? And that's especially true when you've got a guy on the cusp of field goal range, and where your play changes entirely based on the 5 yards. Even if this was the difference between a 35-yard field goal and a 40-yard field goal, this would be stupid because of how little time was left in the half. But the difference between a 66-yard field goal and a 71-yard field goal, the difference between being able to try it and have a realistic chance at 3 points and not being able to try it and having to settle for a Hail Mary and the possibility that your quarterback takes a shot right before the halftime break, there is, quite literally, no risk involved in taking the timeout here. None whatsoever. The best case scenario if you take the timeout is you line up for a 66-yard field goal with 1 timeout left, which again, the timeout means nothing because it's the final play of the half. The worst case scenario if you take the timeout is you line up for a 66-yard try with 1 timeout left. Either way, if you take the timeout, you're lining up for a 66-yard try. On the flip side, the best case scenario if you don't take the timeout is you line up for a 66-yard field goal with 2 timeouts left. But again, those 2 timeouts mean nothing, as there is no difference on this kick between having 0, 1, 2, or 3 timeouts. The worst case scenario is that you back up 5 yards due to a delay of game penalty. So the best case scenario in option A as in the option where you call the timeout is the same as the best case scenario in option B, as in the option where you don't call the timeout. However, the worst case scenario in option A is not only significantly better than the worst case scenario in option B, but is the exact same as the best case scenario in option B. If you have two options, and one of them has a worst case scenario that is better than the other, and one of them has a worst case scenario that is the same as the best case scenario for the other, then by God, take that option. Take the favorable option. Why chance it for no reason whatsoever? What is the point? What is the genuine point of Mike McCarthy as a head coach? And after the game, Mike McCarthy was asked about his atrocious timeout management and just what the heck he was thinking by not taking the timeout, if he was even thinking at all. As for what he said, well, take a listen for yourself.
Well, yeah, just with the transition of it, obviously we were set. They were late substituting, and I think, there's a human nature component to it, where, you hold up for the snap to make sure but, at the end of the day, we're responsible for the clock, and, it's unfortunate because, what an excellent kick by Brandon.
So in other words, it was because the Browns were late substituting, and that threw them off guard. You know what you do if you're confused and caught off guard? That's right, you call a timeout! You call a freaking timeout! Especially if it's right there for you and will cost you nothing, you call a timeout. The Browns were late subbing on because they had to get their special teams unit out there since they didn't think at first that you were trying a 66-yard field goal. So they had every right to sub. And what's crazy is that, relatively speaking, the sub wasn't even that late. Here's a still image of the first time you see on camera the 11th Brown running onto the field. That's with 9 seconds left. I'm assuming that the Brown in question didn't teleport from the sideline to that part of the field. So that took a second. So by the time the 11th Brown was running on the field, there were 10 seconds on the play clock. You saw this. You have eyes, at least I think you do. You saw that with 10 seconds on the play clock, not only were the Browns subbing a guy on, but your offensive line wasn't set and was not in position to try the field goal. Heck, with 5 seconds left, that was true. And you decide to not call timeout in those 10 seconds? It wasn't as though this was a split-second decision they had to make up your mind on in a quarter of a second and your brain froze. You had 10 seconds, 10 whole seconds to do something here. That is an eternity. And you didn't do it, and you decided to save your timeouts for something. I don't know what it was for, but it was for something. Good job, Mike McCarthy. You really outdid yourself here, picking up right where you left off. And for everyone wondering when it comes to this team behind me right here in the Dallas Cowboys, no, I do not fault Mike McCarthy for not trying the 71-yard field goal after taking the 5-yard delay of game penalty. I don't fault him at all in that spot. If you miss from 71 yards, in all likelihood, it's going to be short, and the Browns have a chance to return it. You've got a lot of slow guys on the field as the offensive line is going to try and block for the field goal. So if that field goal misses short, there's a very good chance with a head of steam that the Browns are taking that to the house for a touchdown. So I have no problem not trying the 71-yard field goal. As much as I wanted to see history, as much as it would have been incredible to watch it unfold, I don't blame McCarthy for not trying the 71-yard kick after the penalty. But it never should have gotten to that point in the first place. It should have been a 66-yard kick, and it would have been if Mike McCarthy knew what the heck he was doing out there, which more often than not, he doesn't. So what do we learn from all of this? If the play clock is running out, and it's the final play of the half, and you have a timeout in your back pocket, then take the timeout. You can't save the timeout. You can't use it in the second half. You can't exchange it for a different form of currency later in the game or later in life. So use it or lose it. If you need to take a timeout to avoid losing 5 yards, and those 5 yards will make a tangible difference, and the timeout means nothing in the grand scheme of things, then take the timeout. If there is no reason not to call a timeout, then if you don't call a timeout, you're an idiot. And if you've got a chance at points, and you're going to bypass that in order to save a timeout that you literally do not need, and would not need for any other circumstance, then you are absolutely terrible at in-game management. Or you might be Mike McCarthy. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com And be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.